Welcome back to another podcast. Today I want to be talking about miscommunication, ego, kind of defensiveness, stubbornness on both sides, like why it ruins so many different things. The main gist of getting it right instead of always needing to be right. The first thing I'm going to do and talk about is basically going to at pretty much every single one of us, including myself. We are so bad at miscommunication, like the whole idea of like ego overtaking us and pride overtaking us, being like, well, I'm not going to message first because I don't want to seem clingy, or well, he didn't reply, she didn't reply, so I'm not going to message first. And all of this like drama, or like, oh, I don't want to like double text because I don't want to seem too full on, and then it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to ignore her or him for like 2 days so they know, like, can feel like what it's like to not hear from me. Like, all of these mind games are just sort of ridiculous and such time wasters, and it just goes really wrong because how you may be thinking is not how someone else could interpret it at all. Like, it can backfire so badly. You could be dealing with someone that just is a bit like, they're not going to talk to me, okay, and then you'll never hear from them again, and then you just ruined like a potential. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like this is something we have to stop. The whole ego and pride and getting confused with messages, it just throws everyone off and it really confuses everyone. I feel like a big thing I'm a big believer in is being honest, completely transparent. If you're not feeling someone, tell them. If you are, tell them. As I've said in previous episodes, be passionate. Like, there is no point in being nonchalant and playing it cool like you're not interested. If you want something, go and get it. That's the only way to win in life, is with anything, like money, job, success, whatever. Obviously there's obstacles along the way, but if you want something, go get it. Rejection is literally just like an imaginary fear. We all need to get rid of this whole like rejection fear thing. Or if it is a key like impact of you, like figure out why rejection is such like a hard thing for you, because that will hold you back from so many different things. It will hold you back from like not only relationships or like creating new friends, but like jobs and like potential interviews and things. Like, get rid of that fear of rejection and just fully launch yourself into situations. Be passionate, be completely transparent, because if something's meant for you, it will stick. And if not, then that is fine. It helps the sort of screening process, as I call it. Like, if you are put 100% in and it's not really reciprocated back, or you get rejected, or something goes wrong, then that's fine. It's just like a cross next to their name or that job's name or whatever it was that you threw yourself into. It just makes it easier. And yes, it can be like tough and take time, but I would much rather be like fully myself and fully transparent into a new opportunity than to kind of put my walls up and like withhold some things, because that's not the true me, and that opportunity I might not get because I was withholding something, or like being like my ego got in the way and kind of like sheltering what I truly felt and what I truly wanted to say. So I just feel like in this life we just have to get rid of the fear of rejection, get rid of this nonchalant behaviour, and just go for it. I know we're all guilty of it. I know it's hard, especially when you're like got something new on the go, say in relationships, and you're like trying to like seem mysterious and stuff, but it just is such a waste of time. Like, I don't know, I just feel like if you really want something, go straight after it, and you've got a higher success rate. And completely get why we do it, and it's kind of like the chase in the game. Like, I completely get it, but I do think that like if you are a pretty passionate person, don't dull yourself down just because of like the game or the stereotypes or whatever. Like, if you really want someone that's 100% compatible with you and matches your energy and your like attachment styles, you've got to like present your true authentic form to that person, that opportunity, whatever it is. Otherwise it starts to like crumble away when your true self does seem to come out a bit. I think where I really went wrong with miscommunication and ego and stuff is like, actually once you're inside a relationship, like not even like getting to know someone, but like when you are secure in like a friendship or relationship, and yet you still play those games of kind of like, well, I've messaged, so I'm not going to message again, and like, oh well, I haven't heard from them in hours, but I'm not going to call because I don't want to seem needy. And like, it's a really weird thing to do that, to like, you're in a relationship or you have a friend you've known for so long, and yet you're still thinking and overthinking like how you may be perceived and like what could go wrong. And I think that comes from, again, a fear of rejection. Like, you don't want to piss that person off, but then you're not being your true authentic self. You're not it would be so much easier to probably just call that person or double text, and that person probably wouldn't have an issue with it. But for you, it could be like, well, I don't want to seem clingy, and that put them off me and then they leave me, and it's like a fear of abandonment. Do you know what I mean? But you have to get over that, because the right person would never find those things annoying and would never have a problem with it or make you feel a certain type of way. You need to be your authentic self to see if that person truly loves you. And I think that's where like I've gone wrong, and I always think like, do these people actually like me for myself? Because I feel like I haven't fully been myself. And then in the times where I was genuinely myself, I kind of got backlash from it a bit, and I would get backlash from it, and then I'd spend some time thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't be like that. But now I've got to a point where, no, like, that is me, that just wasn't the right person, that wasn't receiving it very well, and that's fine. Someone else will receive it fine. So do not be afraid to just be yourself, and once you're actually inside something like secure, let loose. Like, that's when you can breathe and really just go be how you want to be. And like, if that isn't received well, then you just know that that is not matching or aligning with you, and that's fine. Leave it, move on. It's a really like simple screening process nowadays. I feel like so many arguments could be resolved, and I'm literally a hypocrite because I used to do this all the time, but if we just double text, or if we did just call, and this kind of ego and pride that we have just takes over a bit, and it's just really annoying. But I think on the flip side it's the same. Like, I feel like a lot of people that don't want to like seem too clingy or seem too invested for whatever reason will then kind of withhold their responses, or be like, oh, I'm gonna wait a day, I'm gonna wait a couple hours, and like see how that person reacts. And like, that's kind of mean. Like, you don't want to be like that either. Like, just get rid of pride, get rid of these games where you're like, I don't want to seem like this or seem like that. And just, if you truly like someone, or you're truly invested in this thing, put 100% in and show that person that you care, and you're committed and willing to do this properly, because otherwise it sends mixed signals. And for me, like, I feel like if it was ever a situation where I feel like I can't be myself and I can't double text, like, I'll know that situation isn't right, because I don't feel safe, I don't feel secure, I don't feel comfortable. So why do I feel like that? I'm going to retreat back. If there's a situation where someone's not communicating with you, like as simple as like a quick message of like an update or something, if they're not doing that, I would always question, what is the need to withhold that? Like, what type of persona are they trying to send me? Are they trying to tell me that they're a nonchalant person that doesn't really like care that much? Something with like miscommunication that I will never understand is kind of, as I said, about the withholding, like, I don't know, a response, a message, like withholding energy when you want to put energy in. Like, I don't get that, and I think it definitely is an ego and pride thing. But something I really don't get is kind of like the silent treatment and like ignoring someone, and leaving it for so long because you're so stubborn. And I think that's a big thing, and I'm guilty of this. I can be very stubborn as well, but I've always hated it when, like, I've had past friends and things and people that, like, when they're upset or not in a good mood or for whatever reason, will ignore you and withhold all contact from you. And I've learned that this is a very, like, beginning of a manipulation tactic, because to ignore someone for hours or days or whatever can like genuinely cause like physical pain. I saw this like scientific thing the other day. I wish I'd kept it now. And I think if you've set a boundary where you say you don't really like that being ignored, like it sends you mixed messages and it continues, like it is a very confusing place to be. And it just leaves too much room for the imagination. And I think that's a big thing with miscommunication, is if you are not clear and transparent about how you feel about something, the other person on the receiving end is going to make something up and make your actions fit, and that could be completely inaccurate. It could be, I cannot say that word, inaccurate. It could be completely wrong. Like, you could just be like busy for a couple of days and you're a pretty like avoidant attachment style and the other person could be viewing this as like you're not interested and you don't really care. That person could then retreat and go, well, he doesn't care, and then you're like, what? So again, miscommunication can ruin like a really good thing. I think it's very important to be transparent and say exactly how you feel. Like, okay, I'm this way, I kind of go offline for a couple of days, does that work or not, or whatever it could be. I think the big problem is because we have this sort of pride and stuff, like we don't like to admit that we do certain things like that, or we like to keep people on their toes. Like if you want to go offline for 2 days or whatever, it's like you want to keep that person on their toes to see if they truly care about you, to see if they'll chase you. But a lot of people don't chase anymore if they get a vibe that like you're not fully invested or you're not interested. So I think it's a really interesting one, and I think it wastes a lot of time, and it really does like leave room for like anxieties and stuff, and people don't tend to trust you if you kind of just like ignore them. So I feel like for me a big thing is I would never do that now. Like I'm fully in and I'll be very transparent. If that backfires on me, that's fine. As I say, it's a screening process. But like I'll try and put 100% into everything I care about, every friend, every job I have, and every relationship. And if I don't get it back, then that's fine. Just isn't aligning with me, because I know that there will be certain things that align back. And that is true, because my friends and my job definitely aligns back with me, gives me 100%. And if they don't, I call them out for it. Do you know what I mean? So, and I do think like it's very hard you get mixed in these games. You know, if you're trying to ignore someone to see if they really care about you, then that person thinks you don't care about them. And then it just fizzles out. And I feel like a lot of my friends have had situationships like that, and it's just like, it's frustrating to watch, because it's like, you like him, he likes you, like just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? So wasting time in this generation I just hate. I just feel like everyone should be completely honest about what they want, because they'll most likely get it. And if you are invested, put 100% in. Get rid of your fear of rejection, because it's going to happen. You don't just meet someone the first time and like it works, or you don't just go to the first interview and it like works. It's not how life works. Just put your all in and the right things will stick. But if you've kind of got these like barriers of like stubbornness and ego and pride and like these mind games, like it's just going to take you a lot longer to find the things that are truly meant for you, and you're going to get mixed up in a whole couple years of just like wasting time. I think life is too short to be stubborn. I need that on a t-shirt or something, because as stubborn as I've been in the past, it literally, as I've learned, like you could die tomorrow, like life could stop tomorrow. You just don't know like how much time you have left, and we're guilty of thinking like time is endless and like it will work when it works, but it doesn't. So I think like sometimes I've been in situations where I've been in an argument and I've been so focused on backing myself and being defensive and like trying to prove my point, instead of focusing on the fact that there's an issue that needs to be resolved, because that person or me could have died the next day and it would have been guilt and horrible things. So now I really try and think about, okay, instead of getting the point of trying to prove that I'm right in the situation, it should be more about getting the situation right. And I've seen this with like a few friends I've had in the past and stuff, of like, I feel like they care more about being right than getting the situation right, and it's where you butt heads and things really don't work, and it's where you see reoccurring issues happening. I feel like reoccurring issues happen when one, someone doesn't want to budge, someone doesn't want to compromise and move, or two, like there's no sort of like accountability. I feel like a lot of problems like with ego and stuff kind of stem from not taking accountability, kind of like seeing a problem as like an attack on your character. I've done it, but I've also been on the other side of it, which isn't nice. And it's kind of, it's not really fair, you know, if you come to someone with a problem because that situation has made you feel upset, and the person is focused so much on like backing themselves and explaining why it didn't come across that way in their eyes, and kind of not why you're wrong, but why you viewed it wrong, instead of like, okay, you may not have meant to do that, but this is how I feel, this is how it's impacted me, so what are you going to do about that? And normally, or what should happen is kind of, oh, I'm so sorry it came across that way, like I'm sorry, I take full responsibility, I've made you upset, you're right, I won't do it again, da, 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 da. Or if you don't really get it, be like, I'm so, like, you know, take accountability for the fact you've upset someone, and then try and figure out kind of like how to compromise on this issue. But a lot of the time it's kind of just, and I've done it, like just defending your character rather than thinking, well, what have I done that's upset this person and how am I going to get this right next time, instead of just, I'm being right. And I've done it, and there's been reoccurring like arguments I've had where it's just really frustrating to be like, do you know what, like I'm not attacking your character, like I love you as a person, but this specific thing you are doing has upset me. What are you going to do about that? And kind of waiting for someone to just get rid of their ego for a second and genuinely want to fix a situation. Where I think this will not work is where the people are not 100% invested. They don't really want to make it work as much as they think they do. Deep down, they don't. They're not right for you. It's not aligning. It's the reason thing will keep going on. The person that cares more about being right than getting it right does not care enough about getting it right for that situation. If it's a relationship, a friendship, they don't care enough. If a friend, if a boyfriend, if a girlfriend truly loved you and truly was invested in this long-term commitment or friendship or whatever it is, they would worry more about getting the situation right than how they look and if they are right. And I think that's when you know you're not completely compatible with some friends and some relationships, when that doesn't seem to be working. I think it is important that like sometimes you ground yourself, and I found this hard because in an argument, like I'm very, like I think like a million miles an hour, and I don't just take a second to just like relax and think about the situation, and like it's not personal, it's not an attack on me, like I'm not in trouble or anything. It's just like, okay, take accountability and now figure out how we're going to get this right for next time. And that's how you know that you're fully committed and invested in getting the situation right. And then over time you start to realise that actually like defending your character and always trying to be right really doesn't matter in this world. So I spoke a little bit about ego, kind of that we all have when it comes to like messaging or, you know, not wanting to be rejected and things. But I really don't like ego. In the sense of like showing off, I find it really unattractive in with anyone. I think if you've got a really high ego, it kind of overrides any room for sort of self-awareness, criticism, and room to grow. I feel like ego is on the border of narcissism, where like you kind of don't think you can ever be wrong, or you're just so like, I'm just so amazing that if someone did criticize you, I think those types of people would take it a lot harder than people that are kind of open to it and don't think too highly of themselves. Now there's like a line here, because I'm all about self-love and confidence, and I think you should back yourself entirely 100%, but ego is a completely different thing. Self-love is kind of, you've done the work to a point where you do love yourself inside out. You understand that you're not perfect, that you do have flaws, and if someone else points those out, you can kind of agree with them on that, or if they point out a new thing, you can kind of take it on board and maybe go away and work on that. Ego is kind of like, you just view yourself with the good thing. So if anyone did bring up a bad thing, you'd be so confused because you'd be like, what? Do you know what I mean? So I don't like ego in that sense, because it just kind of has no room. It has no room for growth, and I'm all about growth and improvement. And if one of my friends says you're doing something that's pissing me off, at first I might be like, what? Like, I didn't even realise I was doing that. And then eventually, like, I'd want to take that into consideration and better that for me and this person. I think ego can be a big killer. It can make you really forget where you come from, and like, you need to be able to ground and humble yourself. And if the people around you, the environment you're in, don't really do that, it's so easy to just get ahead of the game and kind of leave everything behind and just become very like, I'm great and I've done nothing wrong and I've got here by myself, and that's that. And you'll end up forgetting like the people that helped you along the way and things. And you know, sometimes with me and healing, like I get to a point where I'm really proud of myself, because I never used to give myself credit, and now I do. But then sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I'm not perfect. Like if I'm trying to give advice to someone else, I have to be very careful that I don't want to come across like I'm on a high horse or that I know everything, because out of everyone, I do not. I have a lot of learning to still do. So I have to, sometimes I get ahead of myself, and I have to really humble myself and remember that like I still have room for growth and development, and I'm not perfect, but I can still give myself credit and self-love because I've built myself up to a point where I understand my flaws and I understand my good parts and why people would like me and why people may not. But ego is scary because you might not necessarily notice that it's happening to you. So make sure that you are aware of your bad traits and like getting a bit ahead of yourself. Maybe just spend some time more like with family or like nature and like away from like social media, money and all of that, because it can get to people's heads and you can end up pushing away the right people for you. And it becomes a very long waiting game. I feel like you can spend years kind of being like, not really like making any more friends or anything. And it's because there's like this almost fake persona of you that's not really aligning with God's plan for you because you're caught up in ego. So you kind of need to go back to your roots and who you truly are, and that's when you'll start attracting the people that are meant for you, because you're letting your guard down, you're not being so stubborn and kind of like high up that you're allowing people to come in and to call you out on some bad things and allow you to improve with them. I do not want to seem like a hypocrite. Like, a lot of the topics I talk about, like, I'm still learning myself, or I'm still getting to grasps with, but it's just quite a few things that I feel like I've learned over the last few years. Like, I've really learned about sort of miscommunication. Communication, I think, is a key thing, especially in relationships, because it just does leave too much room for the imagination. I feel like without proper communication and reassurance, like, anything can go, and like both sides can then get blamed because one side didn't communicate enough and one side overthought and exaggerated too much, and then that person might not have communicated those anxieties either, and then it becomes a head-to-head, and it kind of ruins a good thing and ruins a relationship or friendship. And I think even like when you're trying to put energy into something like a job or something, getting rid of this rejection and just launching yourself 100%, being passionate, go after what you want because you can do it. I think we just need to get rid of this like stubbornness. And then when you're faced with an argument on something, like if you really care about that situation and person, like be willing to change and to look at yourself and compromise rather than being right. And I think that takes time. You need some like a level of self-love and self-worth to realise that not everyone is attacking your character. It's just more about finding a compromise to benefit that friendship, relationship, whatever that may be. Don't always need to be on the defense. And again, this is something I'm learning. So I just feel like life is a lot more peaceful, and like you can be more content knowing you tried and you did everything you could in the most respectable and loving manner. I think when you withhold things and you're playing all these little games or you're being defensive, you will look back and kind of regret it and think, I wasn't my true authentic self and I didn't give it my all. Like maybe that would have gone further, I would have had more success with that if I'd not run away from if I hadn't put my guard up, or I hadn't run away from being vulnerable. Like, I feel like it's just important to really immerse yourself in every situation you were given. Like, everything lines up for a reason. It's fate that you've got that job, you've met that person, you're speaking to this group. There's a reason. Just be your authentic self. Don't fake anything. Don't play mind games, and be willing to be self-aware and to learn from others. Get rid of this ego. No one is perfect. No one is on their high horse. There's things we've all done wrong, and be willing to hear that and to accept that. I think life is all about being self-aware and being susceptible to change, and putting 100% into anything you do. It keeps the innocence of you alive, and it's kind of a bit like exposure therapy to rejection. You just kind of are like, you're not scared of it anymore. It means you will not withhold yourself from any opportunities that arise in your lifetime because you've had enough experience with it now. I think the more you are scared of rejection, the more you retreat back and kind of have your guard up, the less opportunities will be presented to you, or the less success you'll have with those, because you are so scared of the outcome. And I think nothing can be that scary if it's meant for you.